Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Divemaster.
Yes, that is me, but this is the Level Up podcast, the official podcast for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. And, so we're kind of diverting. We're going deeper into the dive industry with some industry pros this week. The people behind the magazine are Willie Cline and his son, Britton. Guys, how you doing?
We're great. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. No worries. I just got back from the Maldives. I'll have to sprinkle that in at some point, but I might be slightly jet lagged. So you guys are ready to pick up the slack. Is that true, Britton? Come on, help me out.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. Absolutely. The Maldives, man, that sounds fantastic.
It was. We had whale sharks at the back of the boat. And like I said, I'll sprinkle that in throughout the thing just so I can basically tell everybody to suck at losers. I was in the Maldives and you weren't. That's one of the things we can do as divers when we go on these cool trips, don't you think? Isn't that what you do, Willie? You do that sometimes, don't you?
That's true. And Joel just got back from Grenada, and Gil got back from Palau not too long ago. Shelley, I think you were down in Central America someplace, as I recall. So, and Cathryn lives in freaking
I just got in from my backyard.
So we're going to equally be able to, say suck it to our fellow dive industry friends because we're doing our dream jobs.
With hammerheads by the dozen.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
She might have a fin up on me. But before we get to all that, let's steer in towards the DEMA show coming up in November. I was getting through this Maldives trip, and now it's time to hunker down and plan accordingly for the big diving event of the year. I know you've been doing the same thing, right, Britton? What do you got going?
That's right, Greg. We are only 2 issues away from the DEMA show. So guys, contact me if you don't have your space reserved. Last year, we saw a 73% increase in engagement for the show issues. So this year, we're expecting that number to climb just as high. And we want to let as many people know about our magazine as possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm already lining up all the giveaways that we do at the beginning of the show to open up the DEMA show, and I'll tell you, I think we're going to have another record breaker. They're already throwing all kinds of stuff at me, all kinds of trips, liveaboard trips. Oh, and matter of fact, we may actually be giving away a trip to the Maldives, like I just did. It was a 10-nighter with Explorer Ventures. Yeah,
we're going to be doing a series called Live from DEMA every day. So we're going to be working with you on that, Greg. You just don't know it yet.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll add it to the list. Yeah, I'm picking up a few extra gigs this year. It looks like they say, Greg, couldn't you do this? Okay, what the hell? I'm there. It's in Orlando this year. It's in my backyard, so I have no excuse.
Literally.
Yes. So we'll participate. That's what honestly, that's how. With doing this goofy little show called Scuba Radio, I've been doing it for 28 years. This is the opportunity for me to give back to the industry. That's how I do this and give away a bunch of stuff and, send everybody in with a smile on their face. It's a very good Santa-like gig to have at the DEMA show.
That's
so I look forward to it. I really do. It's a good thing. Yeah.
So our July issue, we're running a little late this month. Normally we do this on the 10th, but due to Greg playing in the Maldives, and then I had a trip in addition to that. We had to push it up a bit, but thanks for being with us, everyone. I do want to start off with a brief discussion. If you haven't read my From the Publisher this month, it's a really insightful, very quick and one-page read, but it's a attempt to try to quantify just how big the U.S. dive industry is right now at this moment and how big the global industry is based on a couple of very rock-solid pieces of data that go to build those 2 different models. And interesting, Alex is writing an article for us. I believe it's in the DEMA issue coming up. There's a new study that just came out that was probably the best dive tourism study I have ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them out there that claim they're available. But this is based on a fairly significant number of actual interviews, not a bunch of computer analysis, which stuff's out there, and some surveys and things like that. And then our numbers are very closely follow kind of what they show. So it's really an interesting to read if you get a chance. We showed that the U.S. industry is right now around $1 billion total, and globally we're just shy, a little over $8 billion. And based on the numbers, at least that we've been able to calculate. So take a look at that, and we're going to run through and get started with our very first speaker of the day here, Greg. We're going from Dallas, Texas to Orlando to the Azores.
Yeah, that's right. The Azores with Cathryn Castle.
Azores.
Garcia. Well, Azores, I mean, tomato, right, Cathryn?
Kind of, yeah.
So you were
it's
just
like
diving your country, but okay.
Yeah, whatever. But you know,
right.
So you were just diving with schooling hammerheads. I had whale sharks and mantas. I don't know. That's a tough one, but I think we're comparable. You think?
Yeah, I think both count.
Yes.
It sounds like good dives no matter what.
Absolutely. So, but you got the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, making statements that benefit your business, vision, values, mission. Tell us about it. What do you got for us this week?
Well, the whole we're on a mission. We need to be able to tell our customers what exactly that mission is. And one of the best ways that we can do that is actually craft a mission statement that describes what you do, how you do it, who you serve by doing it. And most importantly, it says why you do it. Why are we here? We are here to serve you. We are here to introduce you to the wonders of the aquatic world, etc.
I like it. You don't just come out and say, "We want your money." Come on. No, we want some of that $1 billion. No, I'm kidding, but only halfway, right?
Exactly. Well, yes, we want your money, but we want you in the door first.
Yes.
So what the key here is to be able to explain to people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why they would want to do business with you. So in a value statement, you're going to actually include not only why are we here, but what do we stand for? How do we behave? What do we think matters most in our business? And for instance, core values might include things like safety, because we all want to make certain that we're offering, safe instruction and safe equipment and safe travel to our clients. Also, stewardship. Are we teaching people how to behave well with one another, with our community, and also with the environment? A lot of value statements would have a spirit of adventure, like we're in this for the adventure and we want you to join us. It's an invitation to have wonder and awe and excitement. And then also an element of service, like how does our business fit into the local community, into the diving community, and into the global diving community. So those are some ways that you can incorporate really good values into your mission statement.
Yeah, and it's an easy sell when you're doing something like, swimming with whale sharks or hammerheads. I mean, it's just natural to want to share this with your friends and people that you meet in your dive center. I mean, that for me, that's what it's all about, is being able to share this love of diving that we've come across, been so fortunate to participate in, and I feed off that. Do you do that as well, Cathryn? What do you think?
Absolutely, and in our industry, it's easy to be real and to give people all the feels. We just want to be able to set aside a little time so that we kind of have our act together when somebody asks, so who are you and what do you do and how do you do it? You want to be able to let that just roll off so that your passion comes through with your authenticity, because that's really key. You have a very short span of time to capture someone's attention and to make them want to do business with you. So taking some time to actually create these statements and then get them down rote. Like, you need to be able to say them and have every member of your staff say them like they're just going to slide off, like it's the absolute fact of what you do. So that's really important. And remember, the key to all of this is to attract more customers to your business. So the more you come off like you know what you're doing and that you're excited about what you're doing, the better off your business is going to be.
Well, once again, I think it's an easy sell. Willie?
Well,
yeah.
That the complicated part is that people, I think, oversimplify. They think, oh, mission statement, I'm just going to put some nice words that sounds good about my company. No. It's a complex process. And I love how on page 22 of this issue, you walk people through the how, who, why, all the different elements of exactly how to create that mission statement. So if you are thinking about changing your mission statement or don't really have a clearly defined one, check out our article. It's really good.
And thanks
she's
for
also
mentioning
available.
that, because I actually am in the process of creating a how to craft a mission statement mini course. And I would love to have some crash test dummies. So if you are interested, if you're listening to the podcast and you're interested in working with me on this and being one of my beta testers, just shoot me an email at hello@clearstorycoach.com or get in touch through the magazine, and Willie will put us in touch, and I can help you test out some of your material for your clients.
There you go. You'll get
And
all
you
the
have,
eels, or I mean, me
and you have
feels, right? Not eels, or both.
Yeah, yes. Eels,
you
feels.
also are going to be speaking at DEMA, correct, Cathryn?
I am. I am really happy to be back again this year as a DEMA sponsored speaker. I have 2 sessions that are in the education package. And it's very important that if you want to attend the DEMA sponsored sessions, when you sign up for DEMA, go ahead and check the box that says education package. It's the best bang for your buck, because we've got a lot of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine staffers that are going to be speaking this year. So you'll get access to all of those sessions in addition to your admission to the event. So I'll be speaking. I have 2 sessions that are DEMA sponsored, and then I also have sessions by another couple of sponsors. And I have some time for some free consults. No strings attached, no charge. If you want to book a 20-minute complimentary consult with me, I have a few of those available. So just get in touch and make certain that you make a reservation in advance for that.
I like it.
Thank you, Cathryn. You know, her tagline in her ad is, if your marketing message isn't clear, you're just making noise. And I think it's really appropriate. So she's got some great insights. So thanks again. So we're going to go from the beautiful blue waters of the Atlantic, at least I got that portion correct, to we're going to take a quick stop in North Carolina. So Britt and I got invited by the nice folks at Garmin last month to test dive their new sonic wave technology. And Gil, I'm really glad Dan's not on this podcast, because he always has the #1 article in terms of interactions and reads every month, but yours is stomping it all over him, unfortunately, with this Buoy article that you wrote. So congratulations, Gil. So Gil wrote about this new technology. And Britain, tell a little about what it was like to dive with this technology.
Man, I tell you what, to be able to see personally, just kind of speaking for the younger diver here, you're able to see your pressure, right? You can tell where your downline is, the little things, right? I mean, Gil covered the new tech pretty well. But yeah, I mean, just being able to see those numbers and be able to tell.
So he's able to see my numbers and my numbers too, not just, So as a buddy, the entire group, we can see each other. Yeah,
actually,
the entire group that we went down with.
You know, Britton, back up just a little bit and explain exactly what this what is it? SubWave? Is that what it's called? And what it does exactly? Yeah,
I believe. Yeah. So it is the. Sorry.
Yeah, just tell us what it is. What does it do exactly?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly what it does, but
you benefited by what it gave you, I guess.
Benefited greatly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Just having all of the numbers, being able to tell, how much air I have, the amount of time I have left in my dive. I'm not having to try and keep track of. I wasn't a great math student anyways, so numbers up here, that's not a great. That's
That's why we're divers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're in this industry. But, even down to the location of the downline, where we descended from, it provided such a sense of security that I wouldn't say isn't always there. But for what the visibility was, it was also really, really nice to just have that quite literally in my back pocket.
Yeah.
What'd you say it was at one point? You thought 7 feet?
Yeah. I thought the visibility was about 7 feet, 6 feet. And, but the tech, man, I mean, the tech allowed me to, just dive without a care in the world. And they said that there were a couple, cool fish in the pond. So I'm over here looking for them and not worrying about the logistics, the dive. It really just, it had that great account of all that.
Yeah. Well, I think
that's a good summary.
Yeah, and that's what Gil wrote about, what the technology is, what it is, And I mean, maybe this question's better for you, Gil. How would you describe this new system from Garmin?
Well, thanks for asking. When I started writing this article, I like to write fun headlines. So one headline I thought I would use would be "Boys will be boys," and then introduce the technology. Or another headline could have been "Where the Boys Are," if you're old enough to remember that movie. But this technology is innovative, it's proprietary, and it's revolutionary. And the best part of it is it can help save a life. I mean, we all love diving in the Maldives, the Caribbean, the Azores, Hawaii, where there's usually crystal clear water. But if you are in a lot of current, like in Cozumel, and the viz isn't the best, and you can't see the buoy, you can't see the boat, this will help you find it, because it helps you navigate to where the buoy is. It helps divers and the surface message each other, and helps divers message each other. And if anyone ever saw the movie Open Water, or has anyone ever been left behind by a boat, first of all?
Thank God, no.
Anyone who has? We all have friends who have been left
Yes.
behind. Unfortunately, they survived. But in that movie, Open Water, this American couple went to the Great Barrier Reef, got left behind, and died because the boat didn't have the system. The boat didn't have a number system where you go back on the boat and give a roll call. So the technology is wonderful because it makes you a safer diver, and they can always track you, even if you're not paying attention to how much air you have or where you are. And it reminds me of a friend who I'll call Roman. I was diving with him in Little Cayman, and every dive we took, he would take off on his own. He wouldn't have a buddy. He would and we wouldn't see him for 45 minutes, an hour. He'd come back up and, oh, I had a great dive. And once I heard, and I asked him about this, he was in Indonesia, and he came up on the wrong boat because he got so far away from everyone else.
Sure.
So this system will prevent that from happening.
Yeah, so it allows the folks on the boat to track all the divers in the water. It allows the divers to talk amongst themselves, or actually see where their buddy is, or other divers in the water, and help them navigate easier. And it uses sonar and God knows what else. It's a pretty high-tech system. Yeah, I was reading about it as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to add one more thing about this article. I've written hundreds and hundreds of articles. This is the first one I ever wrote where I quoted people, but I never physically spoke to them by phone or on Zoom, because they were all so busy with this new product introduction, and there was a media embargo, which meant that we couldn't tell anyone about it until the article came out. But it was all through email. They were very responsive, but it was just kind of a quirky thing.
Yeah.
So we were honored to be the first magazine to actually test dive it and use it in person, and it was quite an honor. And I know, Gil, you did a great job on the article and really summed it up. And Patrick Danko, which is the director of the whole dive division at Garmin, was very impressed with your article and appreciated that. We turned in actually our little visit to an on-the-road Marketing Minutes podcast as well. So if you get a chance to check all that out, it's all on our website. And Greg, thanks for making that great intro there.
Yes. Well, I look forward to, taking advantage of that new tech as well. That's good stuff. Anything to make us safer in the water, both for the operators and for the divers. I mean, that's a win-win right there. And I would imagine they're going to be at the DEMA show showcasing that system, aren't they?
They'll be out in force. And one thing that we didn't mention that's really an interesting aspect of it is after your dive, on the app itself, it creates a heat map to show you where you went, because it knows GPS where the buoy is, and it knows from sonar where you were in relation to the buoy. It can generate an actual accurate map of where you went on your dive. And if you stop at some place and say you're lobster diving and you're spending much time in one area, the little dot, your dot glows to a bright red color. So you can not only see where you went, but how long you spent at each place in the dive profile. So it's really some very innovative technology in that regard.
Love it.
Willie? Does it signal the surface if a diver is low on air and doesn't realize it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We were diving in our group, and all of a sudden my thing flash started binging, and my wrist was rattling, and it was all because our dive guide was beneath 1,000 pounds. So yeah, it signals everybody. There's all different settings. You can set it whatever you want. In this case, they had it set for 1,000. But yeah, it'll signal the boat or your buddy or the entire group that you're low on air, or it reached whatever point, your turnaround point, whatever. And we didn't talk a lot about it because we didn't get a chance to test this feature, because you really needed the equipment in advance to learn it first. But you can message each other back and forth with preset messages underwater. So, that's the advent of underwater texting.
Yeah.
Can you send emojis?
Well, and you can turn it off probably if you want to too. I guess personal preference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, good
You
stuff.
got it.
Good stuff indeed. All right. Well, up next, it's time to head over to Jeff Cinciripino in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, page 35 of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, keeping divers diving by selling the big three. So, Jeff, is one of those three the new Garmin system, or you got a different three in mind?
It should be. It's definitely a big innovation in the industry and a long time coming. So I'm sure we're going to see that around in the near future. But the big three, it was something that I didn't coin the term big three. I just used that because invariably, as a dive shop owner or an instructor or dive professional, your students are going to ask you, what should I buy next? They've already bought their masks, snorkel fins and boots, took their class, and now they're asking the question, what should I buy next? Should I buy a knife? Should I buy a compass? Should I buy a surface marker buoy? What is it? And obviously, you should buy everything. But really, over the years, I crafted my answer to that by saying, look, I can't tell you what you should buy next. What I can tell you, though, is what you're going to need to be a diver, if you want to be a scuba diver. And let's focus on the big three and probably the most expensive pieces of equipment that you're going to get. And my big three is the regulator, the buoyancy compensator, and the dive computer. And I try to explain to people why I feel that those are the three most important things that you have to be a diver and be a safe and competent diver. One, the regulator, they tell you the most important feature of the regulator is ease of breathing. Well, yeah, but it is the most intimate piece of gear you have. It's what you put in your mouth. It's what you need to get the air out of your tank. So one, I want my own regulator. I want to know that I'm using it. I want to know where it's been, how it's been cleaned, how it's been serviced, how it's going to function. So, regulator, one of those three pieces. And then the BC, we hear of people renting BCs, and I've seen it on boats where the BC doesn't fit. It's riding up on their neck. Their buoyancy's all out of whack because of the BC. It's not that they're a bad diver. It's the equipment. They're not familiar with it. It doesn't fit them right. Some cases, they don't know where the releases are. They don't know how to get rid of the weights. So buoyancy compensator, yes, one of those big three elements. And then finally, the dive computer. It doesn't help if you don't know how to use the dive computer. Just slap it on the wrist. If you can't read it, you can't see the numbers, you don't know how to set it up, you don't know how to interpret what it's telling you, what the alarms are all about. The dive computer is really a key component on that. So I always tell people these are the big three things. And guess what? When you have a diver who's purchased those three things, they're going to probably keep diving because they know they've got the gear, they know they have the gear, they know how to use it, and more importantly, because they have their own gear, they're going to be comfortable in the water. And that's one of the things that prevents people from diving is they take the class and they haven't gained the comfort in the water yet. And that's because they don't have their own gear and they're always trying to learn how to use a new piece of gear every time they go diving. So I always looked at it as saying, sit down with them and say, here's the big three. Here's the things you need to be to become a diver. And if you can sell that, you're going to keep your divers diving.
Makes total sense to me. Yeah.
And help your bottom line as well.
Those are the big three. Yeah. They're the biggest investment, right?
Yes. Reg BC, a dive computer, and buy me a beer.
Drink. 4. Yeah.
And add an extra
again,
one.
Jeff.
Yeah.
I had a guy come in one time, and the first thing he wanted to buy was a knife. I'm like, okay.
Call that a knife?
Yeah. Well, see, hunt.
Right. All right. Well, it's what you do. All right. Next up, we got Alex Brylske. He's the man. He's in Florida right now, page 12, training a complete diver. Attitude is everything. So, Alex, what's with the attitude? What do you mean?
I like that.
What's with the attitude is we, as educators, and not just dive educators, but educators in general, really miss the mark in terms of teaching attitudes. And that may sound like an odd concept, but we assume, as many educators think, that attitude is just something that emerges out of the ether, but it really is it should be a very important learning outcome. And it stems from not understanding, some basic concepts in education, in that regardless of what theory you come from, education comes in different flavors. There are at least 3 domains. Every theory, accepts this idea. We have cognitive learning, which is learning from the head. What do I need to know in order to dive? We have motor skill learning, which is, of course, what do we have to do to be safe? But the third realm that's either overlooked or completely missed, absolutely, is what we refer to as the affective domain. And this is the domain where we develop attitudes which drive choices, which eventually drive behavior. And I think with that, in my view at least, that is really the most important part of education, whether it's diving or, whatever subject you're talking about. And so what I try to do in the first part of that article is to, kind of explain what the whole realm of attitude is, and how we have come a long way in learning exactly how we teach attitudes. By the way, it comes originally from the advertising world, not even the academic world. And so with a little bit of background in terms of what attitude education is about, I then segue into the bulk of the article, which is, okay, how do we do this? And then we get into tried and true methods of how you conduct your courses in a way that is trying to imprint and instill the appropriate attitudes in terms of safety and conservation. Because we really are, in my view, the most important thing we do in teaching divers is to make them safe. But I think we also miss the mark if we aren't instilling some ethos of conservation. And in particular, in fact, I have a sidebar that talks about a concept that's gained popularity in education called the flipped classroom, which is where rather than rely on the classroom to give the bulk of learning, you have the students using various tools to kind of get the background, and then what they do in class is to apply and to provide opportunities for the students to really engage. And I was fortunate enough not in the article, but in the resource materials, I was able to identify about 6 free resources on the internet that could be used to address affective learning from NOAA, from various marine sources, and then a guideline on how that can be actually implemented in the course of instruction. So I think I'm hoping, if anything else, it just makes diving educators think a little bit more thoroughly, a little bit more deeply about what our job really is, because we do have an obligation to not only train people who are knowledgeable and skilled, but also have the appropriate attitude towards safety and toward marine conservation.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good attitude, to sum it up in one sense.
It really is. And the QR code at the end of his article, Alex does such a good job of putting together a Dropbox with all these resources for you as an instructor or a professional. So take a look at it. And if you really want to dive deeper, every professional should have Beneath the Blue Planet. It's really it's a book that Alex wrote, and it's sold by Best Publishing. It's a great resource for really understanding what he's been writing about in this series. So I'd encourage it. So thank you, Alex. Great article.
Appreciate it, as always.
All right. Up next, we got Shelley Hendricks from Sun City, West Arizona. And she's written an article on page 25 of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, Managing Peak Season, Stop Burnout Before It Starts. And I assume that's right now, peak season. I'm not sure for Arizona. But, how do we avoid burnout there, Shelley?
Yeah, thinking about the heat of Arizona and burnout in the same sentence is pretty ironic, isn't it? Yeah, peak
Yeah.
season varies depending on where you are in the world, and we recognize that. But I've been hearing from a lot of dive pros recently around, yeah, we're slammed. We're grateful for the business, but we're exhausted. And so that's what prompted this article. So I offer a couple of tips, things like, prioritizing your workload, understanding what matters most, and some ways to do that. I actually think if you email me at the QR code, I have a free tool. I can send you our little tool for prioritization. But recognizing and preventing exhaustion is one of the key ways we can do that. We can avoid burnout. And certainly, in a moment, you'll hear from Gretchen at ScubaFit, who can talk a little bit about increasing capacity, but not waiting until you're wiped out, right? Before you start taking care of yourself and take a break, take a rest, ask for help. Change your tasks. We all have a variety of tasks. So if you find yourself getting mentally exhausted over here, switch tasks and do something different. Trying to change up your workflow and the different kinds of things you do out throughout the day. Doing the hardest work in the peak of your energy is also helpful. Learning to say no when appropriate. Now that's a hard one for some folks. I know that I'm still learning how to do that one myself. So learning to say no and to ask for help, those two combined. The bottom line is we only have 24 hours a day, and we haven't had science evolve enough to change that for us yet. But what we do know is that research shows that when we are very clear on our why, we're able to access extraordinary performance. So I really appreciate Cathryn's article about mission, vision, and values for our business. When we also do that for ourselves, we're able to prioritize what matters most to me. And you're better able to make those decisions about where do I want to invest my time and energy so that I can show up as my full and best self when it matters most.
Makes sense. I like it. I mean, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others and teach them how to dive and stuff.
That's what they tell us on the airplane, right? Put your oxygen mask on before you help others.
Right.
Well, and this time of year, in every resort all around the world, and every dive shop all around the world, they're exhausted staff and exhausted owners because they know this is a crunch time. You only have about another week to go, and the season's officially kind of starts to close down for most people. So
and until until the robots take over, we got to rely on our own health and fitness and
exactly. Thanks again, Shelley. Great article. And by the way, definitely reach out to her. She has a website, diveprocoach.com.
That's right. That's right. And I'll be at DEMA as well. I have a couple of sessions. If you want to stop by and chat with me a little bit about your business or your own personal mission statement, I'd be happy to explore that with you.
Right. And I mean, we can compare temperatures because in Arizona, I know it's even hotter than Orlando. So, you can do that. But look, you got to take care of yourself, physically, mentally. And that's a good segue into Gretchen. Ashton from Carlsbad, California. She's the ScubaFit lady. We've had her on ScubaRadio before back in the day. I love the idea way back then. But page 20, creating a healthier scuba diving business with a fitness profit center. That's her thing. And so what is ScubaFit? And how can a dive shop teach this program there, Gretchen?
Hey, thanks for asking. ScubaFit is a custom fitness program for every diver, whether you're a new diver, whether you're an aging diver, a dive professional at any level, a business owner, or an in-the-water instructor. ScubaFit is the foundation for every other certification out there because it's the place where you can take care of yourself so that you can be the healthiest that you can possibly be and dive more often.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, you got to take care of yourself. I mean, and a lot of people, sometimes I'll go out, like I was in the Maldives on that liveaboard, and it was a 10-nighter, extra long. And, when you're there and you're just diving, sleeping, and eating, you're burning a few calories diving, but not enough. And it'd probably be a good idea to kind of work into, some kind of routine to kind of keep things a little up to snuff, because I came back and I was hurting. You know what I mean? It was the jet
You felt
lag.
that, huh?
It was too much food. I came home with like a 5-pound souvenir that I wasn't expecting to bring back with me, that kind of thing.
Right.
But
You got bit by the chub. That's what we call
yes, right. But
So
but
another
it's good.
aspect,
Yeah.
another aspect of Gretchen's programs is that if you're a dive shop out there and you have an in-house pool, it's a utilization of a piece of an asset you already have that requires no additional expense other than simply buying your materials.
Mhm.
And if I'm going to make a perfect scenario, Joel, you just came back from Grenada with a group you took to Grenada. It would be so awesome if the shop had, about 2 months before, 3 months before, announced a program where you could come and do these diving related workouts as you got ready to go on your trip. So when you would help exactly what you're talking about there, Greg, too, getting more fit, and it's an extra source of revenue.
Absolutely.
Right. There's one of the things that happens this time of year with the burnout and peak season kind of winding down is it's actually the time of year when I find most instructors come to the ScubaFit course. It's available online. It's very easy to take. And the course is, because it's an individual and customized course, it takes the dive professional through a process of sort of rejuvenation, refreshing their goals, maybe recovering from summer. Maybe they had a minor injury during dive season, and really reset and get ready for the next year. A lot of folks start fitness at the first of the year with New Year's resolutions, but at ScubaFit, our fitness year starts right at the end of the dive season. So we can be ready when the first of the year comes, when a lot of divers are ready to get their certifications for being in the water, right? So then you go from that, which is a very busy time, right into summer. So for instructors, there's this little window of opportunity to get your course. It's a distinctive specialty that you can benefit from personally, but then you can teach it to your diving clients and package it with other dive certifications to kind of create value for them. So health, adventure, and community are those are the three things that ScubaFit will bring to your dive shop.
Well, and that'll go back to bringing down the level of burnout as well. If you're an instructor and working at a dive, get involved, get more healthy. It'll fix your brain a little bit in that regard.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you,
stuff,
Gretchen. So, Greg, we have another new writer aside from Gretchen. We have a brand new writer for us. He's not new to the industry in any way, shape, or form, but he's new to our magazine. And Joel Silverstein wrote an article. I'm going to take your thunder a little bit away because I have a reason for it, Greg. Time to Tighten the Standards, a call for rigor in nitrox gas analysis. This story was so impactful that all of our editors were so freaked out after reading this story, none of them wanted to dive with nitrox again. Yeah. So congratulations, Joel. Why don't you dig into this, into the whole concept of accuracy of nitrox analyzers?
Well, I appreciate you having me on. When we started using nitrox gas back in 1988, we followed a lot of standards that came from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, which was you analyze your gas with 2 analyzers in line, and you had to have a specific flow rate for it to guarantee that the analysis was accurate. And now here we are 35 years later, and nitrox analysis has become extremely casual. Casual to the point where there are lots of errors being made along the way. The article got prompted while I was on a trip to an unknown location, and their crew had no idea how to use an analyzer. They kept on readjusting the calibration to get the reading that they wanted. Now, that's kind of like letting your pharmacist keep on mixing the drugs until it matches. Nitrox analyzers are inexpensive. They're a couple of $100, and it's one of the simplest tools that any diver that's diving on nitrox should have. The problem with all analyzers is that they're only as good as the sensor that you have on it, how old that sensor is, and how well you've calibrated the unit. If you've got a sensor that's more than a year old, it's probably not going to be working properly. And if you haven't calibrated the unit properly, you're not going to get an accurate reading. And both of those things will result in either too high in oxygen content that you don't know about, which can lead to oxygen toxicity, or too high in nitrogen content, which will lead to decompression sickness. And so while we're buying all these great dive computers and these, locators and DPVs, the simple oxygen analyzer is probably the most critical tool that you can have. And that's what I tried to get across in that article.
Okay, well, you've effectively scared the crap out of me. Do we have any solutions?
Yeah, the solution is really easy. Get an analyzer, learn how to use it, analyze your own cylinders every time you're diving.
Yeah.
Make sure you're labeling them properly.
See, I definitely do that. I calibrate my Nitrox analyzer every time before every dive, but I did not know that the sensors can wear out in like a year. Is that what you're saying, or it just depends on how they were cared for?
So these sensors are all what are called galvanic sensors, and they've got a fluid inside them.
Mm-hmm.
And the sensor is running the moment it's created.
Yeah.
And it decays over time. And usually an analyzer and a sensor will last 12 to 18 months at best. If it's in a high humidity, high heat environment, you might get about 6 months out of it.
Right.
The other thing is they're extremely delicate.
Mm-hmm.
When you have these handheld analyzers, when you drop them down on the table, they rattle these sensors, and that can dislodge the chemical that's inside of them. And that, in effect, will also provide a false reading.
Okay. Well, back to air.
Part of the article, Greg, my favorite part of his article was saying something about the effect of the analyzer being tethered to a tank on the back of the dive boat, bouncing around. I mean, how many times have we seen that?
Yeah.
True. It's really, really remarkable. And thank you, Joel, for that really insightful article. I've had a couple people reach out to us about it. You had, and he's going to follow up with O2 in this next month, right?
Yeah, the next article talks about oxygen cleanliness and how you keep your valves and your system clean. Because just like a dive certification, it's only good on the day it's actually done. And afterwards, if you get it dirty, it's going to be dirty.
It's great. It's great. Thanks again, Joel. Thanks for your article. Greg, that's about it. The last thing I want to talk about is I wrote an article on page, I think it's on page 11, very much complimentary to Shelley's article, and it deals with some tactical advice for operators that are at this end of the season, end of the summer period, and how you can best utilize that crazy busy period of time by journaling. It sounds simple, but usually you forget as you get through the summer, and you've got to write. If you write down what's worked well, what didn't work well this summer, then at least you can utilize your off-season time to adjust it for next year. So they were both the articles are kind of dealing with that burnout process, which everybody has this time of year. And Joel, you gave us a preview for next month. On the front cover of our magazine is this beautiful manta ray. This is on this issue, and that was provided by Mandy. How do you pronounce her last name, Go? Epson?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, and it's the owner of Neko Marine in
I think it's
Palau.
And Palau? I was going to say I recognize that manta
Palau.
in the Maldives.
So he helped arrange this image. So thank you very much, Gil. He didn't shoot it, but he helped arrange to get it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because he has written a dive leader's guide to Palau for next month. So it'll be really for group travel. So that should be a great article. Al Hornsby, which because of the time difference in Singapore, has not been able to make these podcasts, but he's doing a great job with his liability series. If you haven't read them, read his articles. They're astoundingly poignant because as the chief legal advisor for Patty for almost 3 decades, he's seen every lawsuit there is. They all went through across his desk, and he boils that down to a 1-page analysis of what went wrong. And it's fantastic. John Fine, a new writer out of South Florida, is writing about different forms of cooperation. Dan's continuing his series, Dan Orr, on him and Al took a very similar tack. They're talking about safety stops. And it all stems from a conversation that we both had with somebody completely different in the industry about misperceptions of required versus you should do it, but only if there's not an emergency. So they kind of both tag on the same concept. And then Alex, of course, is doing his next few installments of his book series. That's it. Brayton, do you have anything else you want to wrap up with today?
Yeah, what do you think, Brayton?
As we get closer to DEMA, guys, really, if you don't have your spot, give me a call. My email as well as in the is in there. So make sure you're reaching out.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, now's the time everybody's hunkering down in the industry to get ready for the show. So get your hotels booked and all that kind of stuff. We only got a month or two, and it's going to be here
DEMA
before
has a
we know
room
it.
block, and they've got the host hotel, which is the Rose Inn this year. The convention center is called the West Hall, and it's physically right attached to the hotel. So it's really nice. It's not across the street like usual. And they also have a host hotel. They have a host hotel or host rooms at the Days Inn, which is like $89. So depending upon your budget, there's no reason to not come to DEMA. So
stay an extra day or two. Hit the new Epic Universe theme park.
Yeah, because we're going to have a big party at Greg's house. I haven't told you that either. No, just kidding.
I'm not even going to be in my house. DEMA takes up so much time. Even though I live here in Orlando, I literally move into the Rosen Center for the week because I got to be down with all my dive buddies, and I don't do the commute back and forth. Yeah.
Thanks, Greg, for a great show, and all you writers and contributors. Thank you, and we'll do this all again next month.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Level Up. Don't forget to check out Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern Time. Till then, remember, it is always better
where it's wetter.
Well, closer down where it's wetter. That's it.
Down where it's wetter.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Cline Group. For more info, go to ScubaDivingIndustry.com.
Hi everyone, my name is Britton Cline, Ad Sales Manager, and welcome to this week's edition of Marketing Minutes by Scuba Diving Industry Magazine.
Well, thank you. You're almost right. This is actually not Marketing Minutes. We're doing From Behind the Counter, our new retailer series.
That's right.
And to say Britain here, we've only done 51 of the other shows.
That's
We're
right.
only on our fourth From Behind the Counter, so that's perfectly okay.
That's right.
So this is I'm William Cline, I'm the publisher. This series is retailer to retailer related. It's directed at dive shops and dive shop owners and managers and their staff. And we've had some great guests already on our show. But who do we have today, Britton?
Yeah, so our guests today are Michael Connors and Rachel Scott, owners of American Dive Zone in Grand Rapids. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Britton. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're really excited to be on with y'all.
Well, thank you for joining us. And we have an interesting story. We ran into them at DEMA last year.
That's right.
They came up to us and asked if they could change the name on their magazine they're getting, Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, of course. And so we started chatting, and they have kind of a really fascinating story about how they got into the dive business.
Absolutely. But just to kind of jump right into things, how about you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and maybe what led you to buy a dive shop?
Yeah. So I started diving about 8 years ago and kind of got into it as something to do with my brother as a way to kind of step out of the day-to-day grind of the corporate world that I was living in. Really enjoyed that, but my love for diving didn't really pick up until a couple of years later. I had an opportunity to go down to St. John and spend about 4 weeks diving every day. And it that's really where my love for diving started to take shape, and started taking classes and kind of moving up the ranks, and eventually became an instructor at a shop out in New York City where we were living. And that's where Rachel and I had met, and when she got started on her dive journey. But I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I started my dive journey with a Discover class, and it was actually in Puerto Rico. I had that class planned before I met him, and then we actually met talking about scuba diving on one of the dating apps. Wow. So I had planned to go diving before we even met, but he already fell in love with it. So it was really cool when we were early on dating, to hear his perspective of it. It got me really excited to get certified.
Totally.
And then I eventually did get certified, fell deeply in love with it. And I also come from a corporate background. So for me, I was always in meetings. I was always doing Zoom, sales pitches, and being underwater, there's just nothing like it. I mean, there's no distractions, there's no phone calls. They say you find a better connection under the sea. So I feel like I really fell in love with that aspect.
So that's fascinating. And now you do nothing but just frolic all day long in your dive shop. It's really not a lot of work. It's easy compared to corporate America, correct? Tell us a little about what it's been like adjusting to this new lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a little different, right? When you're operating and you're the boss at the end of the day, everything does fall on you. Everything from, hey, making sure that our customers' tanks get filled on time, to deciding, what inventory do we want to bring in. So it's been a big shift there, where we have a lot more control over our day-to-day, which is both good and bad, right? You get to make the decisions, but that also means that everything does end up falling on you. And so it's been a bit of a transition, but definitely one that was, I think we're both very happy that we took that plunge and made the decision to buy the shop, which we've been running now for about 15 months. So it's been spectacular so far.
So Rachel and Michael are also authors, and they're writing a series for us, a new series called From Behind the Counter, same as this video series we're doing. And their first article appeared in our July issue. So can you tell us a little about how you found this shop and how you bought the shop? Because I think that's a fascinating story in itself that other dive shop prospective owners out there might be interested in hearing.
Totally, yeah.
So I'll let Michael start off, because he really got things going for us.
Yeah, my background was always in buying and selling small businesses for investment banks and private equity firms, and always kind of had that itch of wanting to go out and do something myself, and figured, hey, let's try to do something that we're passionate about as well. And talked to Rachel about that, and she thought, hey, that would be a great thing for us to try to go and build something together, to be able to combine our different business backgrounds to put forth and grow an industry that we're really passionate about. And so about 2 years ago, one summer, I woke up and said, hey, let's look at dive shops. And we cold emailed a couple of owners and just said, hey, are you looking to retire? Have you thought about what your next phase is and what the next phase for your shop is? And through that cold email, got a couple of responses, and one of them was the former owner of American Dive Zone, who said, yes, I'm ready to pass along the torch, but I'm not ready to be done diving. And we flew out and met with him a couple of different times before coming up with an agreement on what would work for both of us. And, we can talk about it later on about the details of how that all worked out. But it really just started with this idea of, we want to build something together, and we want to do something that we're passionate about. And I think the best way to do that is really to buy an existing business, because there are so many benefits to that.
So we had our previous guest on, Jeff Cinciripino, another one of our authors, sold his shop, Scuba Shack. And so his perspective was, what he went through to find a Rachel and Michael to sell to. That's right. And so in his case, it happened to be staff that worked for the dive shop itself. So that's a fascinating story and way of which you got into the business. I'm going to jump into the questions that we kind of asked you in advance, the three things that you believe you do very, very well at American Dive Zone. Would you talk a little bit about those different points? Now, this is advice to other retailers that you've either brought to the business or learned since you've been owners for the last year and a half.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple of things Rachel and I will kind of trade off on. But the biggest thing was we came out with, our mission statement for ourselves and why we wanted to get into the business. And our whole goal at American Dive Zone is to make sure that our divers feel comfortable and connected in the community. And what is concept for a lot of people and uncomfortable, And so we lead with, let's get you comfortable just breathing underwater, get you comfortable with that feeling of weightlessness, right? That's really, I think everything with training comes down to that. And then once people are comfortable, it's let's really hone in your skills and make sure that you feel confident that you can handle situations that might get thrown at you underwater. And if you feel comfortable and then confident with your skills, you're going to have a great time diving and you're going to hopefully continue your dive career. And then our last leg is about community, right? That's a big part of this scuba diving world, is the community that you connect with. And that's been a big focus of ours, was carrying on the community that the former owner built, but also starting to build onto that with, you know, our own community and the additions that we're making. And so that was really a big kind of number one point that I think helps us stand out against some of our competition, is leading with those 3 points when we talk to new customers.
Yeah, we really enjoy bringing this community together. So we'll do social events. We do dive nights. Like tonight we have Dive and Thrive Thursday. Like, it's so fun, and we get all these people that just come out, and sometimes the visibility is horrible, but they still have a really great time, because when you're hanging out with people that share that same passion in diving, what's really cool is we get to these meetups and like no one's asking, oh, what do you do for work? It's always, oh, what's the best dive you've ever been on? Or what's the coolest story you have? And it's just, it gets people to escape from what we essentially escaped from in buying a dive shop, is, you know, escaping from that world that we're in, that monotonous world of work, 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 work. And here's the fun part. Here's why we're living. Here's why, you know, we're doing this, and why we're breathing, and we're breathing underwater.
So it's the same W word 4 times. It's just you're doing it with something you love to do. Because I'm sure the hours are far even more than what you put in before in corporate America. It's just a different transition. So you mentioned 2 other things that were really fascinating. And I'm a huge believer in standards and procedures and operating manuals and things like that, especially in a small business. And the dive industry as a whole has very, very little of that, because we all come just like you folks. Most everybody comes from some other background, and organically we don't really have an institution that can train us. You can teach you how to be a great instructor. That's easy. I mean, we have great training, but that's kind of where the training ends. So talk to us a little about your SOPs you've put together for your shop and how it helps things function smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, a big challenge that I've seen with a lot of small businesses is you have that one key person, you know, the owner, the manager, who just has everything up in their head. And that works really well when you're running a small business and you're the only person. But it is challenging when you try to bring on additional staff to help you scale, or even be able to take a vacation or lead a dive trip. And we ended up buying this business right at the beginning of the busy season here in Michigan, and everything was in the owner's head. You know, he just had everything down to, you know, here's how you do this, to, oh, here's the little quirks that we have to think about. And that made it a little challenging at the beginning, especially coming in and being thrown right into the fire. And so we worked with the owner to figure out, okay, what are the true processes, and then writing down exactly what are the steps. So for example, how do you O2 clean a tank? What are the exact steps to do that? That makes it very repeatable. And when we need to train people on things like that, or things like how do you book a customer? How do you explain to them what the process looks like? We've tried really hard to write everything down and make it very, very simple to follow, because that's what we can use, 1, to make sure that we're all on the same page, but 2, to be able to train additional staff quickly and get them up to speed. Because I think one challenge that you see in this industry is everyone does things a little bit differently, even within the same shop. And that doesn't create a consistent message or way of doing things. And it doesn't create a standard for how you want to represent yourself. So putting those processes in place was really kind of critical to us being able to get through that first season. And then we spent the winter kind of refining them and saying, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, so that we were able to come into this year's busy season with a strong idea of exactly how we want to serve our customers.
So give us an example. You mentioned partnerships are really something you've done very, very well since you've got into the business. Talk to other shop owners about what kind of partnerships and how that's helped the company.
Yeah, so what's really incredible about these partnerships is our community actually brought the introductions to get these off the ground to us, which just means a lot to us. It means, we've really made an impact already the first, year working with all these people. But we've kicked off what we like to call a lot of our youth programming. We truly believe that getting divers in the water when they're younger just really sets them up for their whole dive journey. And yeah, it's been a really exciting way to get them to step outside their comfort zone a little bit, bring a little bit more connection within their families and their friend groups. And we just did a trip to the Bahamas where 2 of the students that trained and did the open water certification through the school program we ran went on the trip. And that was actually the first time they'd ever left the country, ever left the state of Michigan. So really huge. We're really trying to just make a huge impact in these people's lives, deeper than what we're just doing in terms of servicing them.
That's amazing.
That's super awesome. Sorry, thank you for that. So what are 3 things that you're planning to expand or change or start in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest, or I guess the first one that we'll talk about is right now, a lot of dive shop owners, and we've noticed this with our shop, we're very paper focused, right? There's not a lot of automation going on as it relates to following up with customers, as it relates to getting them schedules, as it relates to having, a digital footprint. So we're actually working with a tech developer right now on figuring out how we can leverage AI in our operations just to make things run more smoothly, so that 1, we're interacting with our customers a little better, but 2, our operations are a lot more efficient and streamlined, which is fantastic because that frees us up to do some more of the higher value added work, like talking to customers, getting them interested in diving, figuring out what the next steps are. So that's one of our focuses. And we do have a few others that Rachel's been working on.
Yeah, so I actually this past winter took a digital marketing course. It was like a 12-week course. I really wanted to learn everything about how do we get ourselves out there and create a social media following. How do we really increase that digital footprint? Because the previous owner had a website, really didn't have much social media, had a Facebook, which was actually pretty active. But it was like, how do we capitalize on the Facebook that's really successful, so keeping that going, but then also introduce Instagram and some of these other social platforms.
Right.
YouTube is also one that has really performed very well in this industry, and it's just how can we integrate that into what we're doing, because that's my side of the wheelhouse. I come from a marketing, partnership, sales background, so how do I infuse that into the business? And one of the ways that we're really excited about after this busy season, because we have been very busy, is to introduce an email marketing campaign program where we've got a drip campaign of all the emails that'll be going out to our customers, to segment them so that certain customers are getting these emails that are tailored to like their interests and what they've purchased from us previously, getting them to come back. Because looking at our performance financially for the past year, gear sales were actually one of our highest areas of revenue attainment. And so how do we just keep them coming back through this email drip campaign, and then just bringing in some of that skill set that I took from my experience in corporate and making it work for us in this new venture.
No, that's fascinating. So what advice would you tell someone else out there that's maybe thinking about making the same move you did? Things to watch out for, or things you found out that you didn't really think about once you got in, you're like, oh, shoot, what do we do about this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think if you're thinking about getting into it, as we talked about at the very beginning of this, there are great agencies that will train you how to become a great instructor and teach. But that's really only one part of the business, right? You also have customer service, you have marketing, you have inventory management, you have other instructors managing them. And so it's, hey, start to learn some of those other sides of the business so that when you do take over, you've got an idea of, okay, here's some of the challenges that I have, because it's not like you're in the water all day, every day, just putting people through classes, right? It's a lot more than that. And so I think anything that you can do to enhance your understanding of, hey, how do I market my business? Or how do I handle inventory? How do I manage cash flow? All of those things I think will go a long way in setting someone up for success to be able to run a dive shop. That's really, I think, what it comes down to, is understanding it's more than teaching. You're taking a bigger step, and you are running a business, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to sustain yourself and grow the industry and get other people interested and involved in diving.
I also really like the term like SWOT analysis. So coming from the business world, we were very familiar with that. So immediately before we jumped into this, we looked at what are the strengths of the business, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities and the threats. And very quickly off the bat, we had sat down and we were like, okay, we think these are some of our risks. And one of our biggest risks was the former owner had a partnership with a local pool. But it was a handshake agreement. It was, hey, we use your pool to train. And when we came on board, there was actually a change in ownership on their side. And so the new owner of that pool decided they did not want to do that agreement anymore. And we were poolless, like right in the middle of our busy season. We had classes all. And so it was a risk we had looked at, a risk we had identified early on, but it allowed us to just take a moment and say, okay, we knew this was going to happen, or we thought this was going to happen.
Right.
So let's now just work towards a game plan of how to get through it. So anticipating ahead some of those roadblocks and challenges, and just knowing you're going to have to work through them, but you can get through them, because we have a pool, we have a new partnership. It's actually, really done an incredible job for our business.
That's
and
great.
We're teaching classes.
That's awesome. So knowing all of that and kind of going into this question with what you have now, right, in the business, have you considered opening and expanding to a second shop?
Yeah, we're putting together a strategy right now to look at how can we not only expand American Dive Zone, but also how can we look at partnering with other instructors who want to run their own shop and maybe want some business background support. So we're in the midst of going through that right now, but the idea is let's continue to expand, bring some of the knowledge that we've taken from running our shop over the year and combine that with our backgrounds to help other instructors become successful small business owners. And so there is a kind of a grand plan going on in the background. And then as it relates to American Dive Zone itself, we are currently looking at, okay, what is the next kind of big growth phase for us, and what does that look like? Does it look like a facility with a pool, which would be really nice? Does it look like something in a completely different state that can expand a community around there? There definitely are a lot of things on the horizon that we are working through to try to help ease this big transition that we haven't talked a lot about, which is dive shop owners getting to that point where they're ready to retire and kind of pass that torch along. And it's like, what kind of role can we play in making sure that transition goes really smoothly, so that there are dive shops for people to continue to come to, get their certifications, get their gear service, get their tanks service, and travel with.
That's great.
For sure. That's amazing.
That's great.
Wow. So you guys, thank you so much, Michael and Rachel, for being on the show. We're really looking forward to seeing you guys at the DEMA show,
which is like about 80 some odd days away.
That's
I
right,
think just right around the corner.
Bit,
it's hard to believe. So, Britton, who do we have lined up for our next guest on this show?
All right. So our next guest will be Steve Weaver, the former owner of Weaver Dive and Travel in Boulder, Colorado. So stay tuned for that. It should be a great interview.
Oh, it should be great. Steve has 4 decades of experience. He's on the other side of where you are. He just sold his shop last year to Oceans First, another shop in Boulder that now has 3 shops. They have 1 in Key Largo and 2 in that area. And so they... it'll be a great interview, I'm sure. But any last parting words you have for other dive shops out there, or any last words of advice?
Yeah, I'd say if you're thinking about getting into the industry, I think now is the time to do it. The industry is on the cusp of a pretty large transition. You have all those first generation owners who have gotten us to where we are today, and it's time for that next generation to come and bring fresh ideas to continue to grow the industry. So I'm very bullish on the scuba diving industry moving forward, and I think if you're thinking about making the leap, definitely research it and start to figure out how you can get involved on the business side of things to see if that's a path you do want to go, because it is very rewarding to be able to do this and be able to help others get into the sport.
And I think because we've had some experience in doing this more recently, we would love to also just extend, our help as well. I mean, please reach out to us. Let us know if you are, looking at maybe purchasing a dive shop. And we would love to sit down, talk with you about our experience and help you achieve it, because our goal at the end of the day is to keep this industry thriving. And the only way we can do that is if some other people get on board with us.
Well, that's great advice and a really wonderful offer too. So dive shops, if you're out there listening or watching this show, reach out to them. They could be a great resource. And that's going to do it for today. You can watch this show and all of our shows on ScubaDivingIndustry.com, right, Britton?
That's right.
We'll see you.